Okay, I enjoyed your lesson. How do you think it went?
It could have gone a little bit better. I should have given myself more time. Um, I when I set up the timing, I think I based it more on how fast I could do it to an extent, and then I adjusted from that. And I should have remembered that with the different levels I have, somebody's gonna need a lot more time. So I should have given them more time to do it because we did run out before I could finish explaining at the end.
Yeah.
Um, Lesson learned on that one. And then we didn't get to going over their multiple choices, so I definitely didn't have enough time for that. So I think in terms of having them do the work and understand it and talk to each other, that worked out pretty well because they were able to explain to each other, well, this is why I put this, but again, time. They should have just had more time for that.
Yeah, I did. I didn't notice that because it seemed a little rushed, and especially when they were asking questions, like when you were modeling it afterwards, it seemed like they were kind of rushed for like I need my question clarified, but at the same time, like we have to move on to the next part.
Yeah, the bell's about to ring.
Yeah, I definitely saw that. Which I guess is
I should have given
learning.
myself the whole block instead
Yeah.
of half the block for this.
I think 'cause I think it was a really good activity, and I think it would help the students, especially when you have so many different levels in that class. But I do definitely think time was it because you could kind of see with certain students, it was taking them a lot longer doing the independent section on their own than it was some other students. So I think kind of I like the idea of timing when you time the lesson because especially some students they were focused on it. They
Yes.
didn't get distracted like, oh, let me do this or something else or let's start talking. They were very focused on it.
That was the intent. Putting a timer on there so you don't play. But like when I went around after they finished the first section, or while they were working on it, they were comparing. I was looking at that, and there were kids who hadn't even gotten halfway through.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, okay, okay. That's pretty much all I could get out of that. Obviously, this was too fast for y'all. So that's just something to take into account.
Do you think like the students overall, like I guess just with the content, do you think your ones who you obviously know have been struggling with it, do you think they were continuing to struggle with it, or you think it was helping them master the concept?
I think it was another set of practice for mastery.
Okay.
Some of them that were struggling, what they were struggling with was not understanding, but remembering. Okay, this is what this is. This is how this works. How do I draw this graph? Right, okay, because I told them they couldn't use their notes. This was to see what they could apply
Yeah.
from all the stuff we had talked about. And in quite a few of the cases, it was simply a case of this was another level of mastery for them, helping them get better at it. If this had been for a grade, though, some of them would have gone down in flames on it. They were not, they still, like the graphing part, at this point, you can either draw the graph or you can't based on memorization, because that's what these graphs are really turned into. It's memorizing. This line goes here, this line goes here.
Yeah.
And the kids who really struggled with it, they still haven't memorized. This line goes here. They can articulate it, which is funny, but they cannot draw it, which is half of what they need.
Yeah.
So.
Do you think doing the activity the way you did with the different groups, do you think it helps reach your like the ones who are struggling, and the ones who basically have it but just need a little more help, and then the ones who are, I guess, more advanced? Do you think the different levels helps?
It does. When I put them in the groups, I did realize that I was trying to put some very strong people in with the lower level groups, because I knew that when you let them work on their own, they gravitate. All the really strong ones gravitate together, and all the ones that are still kind of like shaky, they just sit there and they don't even talk to each other sometimes. And so I wanted to break that apart. Like, okay, I'll pick on two kids. Okay, well, student A is he's very, very strong in this. He gets it. If he forgets something, it's because he's, you know, just like, he's like, oh wait, let me think, all right, got it. Student B, this class has been a struggle for her all semester. It really has. And they ended up sitting together and working together, and that was good for him, because he was reinforcing it for himself. Yeah. And for her, she was hearing it in a different way, reinforcing what she understood and hearing the stuff she didn't a little bit differently. And so I do think the groups worked out better than I had hoped for, because I was like, fingers crossed that some of y'all that this will go. I think I would have broken the groups down a little bit more, though. I might have even had 4 levels of groups. But I'm not. I would have had to have done something probably up front rather than just my own like visual assessment and like in talking to them to know who should be in those 4 groups. Because I don't want, what I was concerned about is a really high level person and a person who's really struggling. A high level person either just giving them all the answers or talking over them.
Overwhelming them and getting them more frustrated with the situation.
So it worked, but it could have gone even better, I think. Maybe if I'd had them in smaller levels of groups.
Yeah.
4 different types. I think also, instead of giving them 2 different types of assignments, because the intent was that one group would do the orange part, and then one group would do the yellow part, because that's why they were color coordinated, and then we flip.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the timing factor did not work on that one. I think what I should have done, though, is taken each of those and scaffolded those. And then we could have moved on to the next one. Like, okay, everybody's going to get an orange one, but you're this shade of orange versus this shade versus, okay, that would have been too complicated in coloring. But you're orange A, you're orange B, C, and D, and maybe scaffold that way and see if that would have helped a little bit better.
All right, looking onto the feedback form, in the first section about learning environment, it was very evident you have a very good relationship, especially with that group. It's very evident from how you guys talk with each other and discuss, and majority of them aren't afraid to ask questions, but one thing I did notice, it's a lot of the times it's the same ones. And I kind of see what you were talking about earlier with, you know, some of the stronger students overwhelming. That's definitely something, even with asking questions or asking clarification, you did see that with a lot of the stronger students were the more vocal ones. And then your other students who might be struggling more were not as confident to advocate for themselves because of the stronger students kind of dominating the conversation.
There's a couple of them, a couple of the kids that really struggle, they don't say anything if I don't approach them first.
Yeah.
And part of it, in a couple of cases, part of it is personalities. They're just very quiet individuals to begin with, and so that just happens with them. But you can also see watching sometimes, they very much, it's an AP class, and you don't want to be the dumb kid in AP. And so you can tell sometimes that if I don't ask them, they won't respond out. Like there's one boy, he does ask questions, but he's very quiet about it. Because he told me, he's like, I got bullied when I was younger by people for just speaking out and things like that. He said, so I just try not to draw attention to myself. Well, that's a terrible thing to begin with, but it's really terrible when he legitimately needs help. So now that I know that, though, I know to watch for him, and God bless him, he sits up front, so it's easy to see. But yes, there are some very confident, very strong students. They will dominate the whole thing if they're not reined in tight.
Yeah, I did notice. I think one of the things that kind of what helped also when you're talking about your grouping and the students working together would be grouping the desk more, but I realize like space is a huge issue because that class is, you know, overcrowded, and the room is very small. So I'm aware like that is an issue, but I think that would help, or even kind of clustering them a little bit more, because I kind of noticed some of the students who were struggling kind of stayed within their own little desk area, and didn't really branch out more. And you would see some of your stronger students kind of lean over to another strong student and be like, hey, did you do this on the graph? Or how do you think about answering this one? And I think it kind of, in some cases, isolated some students more. Whereas if you're kind of like forcing them to look at each other, you know, it's kind of going to force a conversation a little bit more.
Ideally, we would be able to move the desks more, but like you said, we have more students than desks right now. So that poses a seating problem all on its own.
Yeah.
But it also poses the problem of how do you group desks when you can't. It would be like I would have to really make it work. I'd have to take them to a larger location like the media center.
Yeah.
And be like, this is your table, this is your table, this is your table, this is your table. Even then, those tables are long rather than round, which would be ideal.
So you could still have that self-isolation.
I would have to be like, you guys get this half. You can't go past the line.
Papers, you know, you had certain people who tend to kind of gravitate toward each other, but when they were discussing it, I noticed you walking around, and you only got to like one side. So you only got to, I think it was the orange group.
Yeah, I got through the orange group over here.
Yeah, and it was good because they were able to ask you clarifying questions, and you were able to kind of check more for understanding. But at the same time, your high group, they were going over it, and I think that would have been a great opportunity to kind of ask more challenging questions to kind of take it, you know, this step further with the enrichment piece of it, especially if they're already like have a firm grasp on the content, kind of, okay, well, we got that, let's take it to the next level. And so I think that would have been good because when they were talking, you spent your entire time with one group. And so,
It just so happened that the orange group also had more strugglers
yeah,
than the yellow group did, so that was part of the,
yeah,
the yellow group, in all honesty, kind of got the, that's not what we call that, but the people who had the yellow assignment,
Yeah.
they definitely got the short end of the whole timing thing.
Yeah.
All the way around.
and I think, you know, I know I even struggle with that sometimes, especially when you're teaching AP or honors students, because a lot of the time you're really strong ones, you're like, okay, you got it, I need to focus on the struggling ones, where, you know, sometimes they need to be pushed even further.
Definitely.
So I definitely think if you did, because you could easily see, like, within your strong group, there were some that were, there were gaps. There were some who, you know, were strong, but then there were some that leaps and beyond that.
Yeah.
So kind of going back to your earlier idea of the different levels within each group, I think that would have really benefit, especially your really strong individuals already in the strong category.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think all that kind of went to timing. I did think that the modeling was very good at the end, especially for your struggling students to kind of see it. You could kind of see, you know, you were rushed for time just because of the scheduling and stuff. Because you could kind of see like you're going through the orange and some of them still had questions, but you're like, I gotta get through this because I have to help the other group.
Yeah.
So do you think, like in the future, do you think that, obviously you said kind of moving it to more of a full block period to do it, or